absolutely incredible. And I'm very, very glad personally to have you here because you're the people responsible for me restarting my role-playing hobby, basically. So,
Oh, that's sweet.
Yay.
so up to you.
Okay.
So we're gonna talk about sex and romance in role-playing games, right? That's what
we're here for.
what we signed up for. Let's see. We always start with.
Well, we always start with introducing ourselves by that base. I'm Meguey Baker, and I'm a certified sex ed teacher for grades 7 through 12, which is about ages 12 to 18, 19. And I have also put together curricula for parents helping their children navigate sexuality, because as a parent, it's sometimes utterly baffling and terrifying to be responsible for conveying safe, healthy information to support your child. So that's sort of my background. I teach sex ed pretty much anywhere I can, as much as I can. I feel like having the tools to understand and communicate clearly around your own body, your own boundaries, and your own desires is really important, sort of basic knowledge that everybody should have. And in America, that is very, very radical idea. So that's my background in that specific space.
I'm trained in the same curriculum, Meguey and Vincent, and I've never taught, but I've been through the training, and mostly I use sex ed ideas in my game design. Mostly, that's my side of it, is the
game design side.
The game design side, the system thinking side of it.
And also some of my earliest game design, when I was a teenager and taking part in training, being a peer trainer or a peer teacher for other kids, dealt with game design, designing games around principles that we wanted to talk about. My favorite is the M&M game, which is about disease vectors, which is extremely relevant right now, in which you separate all the M&Ms by color. You give each teenager a paper bag with an undisclosed color in it, and they have 5 minutes to trade 1, 2, or 3 M&Ms with as many people as they want. And then at the end, they pour their M&Ms out onto a paper plate and look at who has a yellow M&M and has therefore contracted whatever STD. And oh, if you have blue M&Ms, those are condoms. It's a 1-to-1 trade-off. So that sort of thing. So the ideas of sex ed and games and game design, are very integral to me. They're very connected because we learn through play, starting when we're very young. We practice the world. We practice outlooks and attitudes and skills through play. So having a chance to present sex ed, sneak sex ed into game design makes me very, very happy. And then we should talk about it not being the rape.
Yeah, the other thing we always lead with, this is not a panel about sexual violence or about rape or assault or harassment. This is about bringing romance and sex positively into game design and into gameplay. So we will barely, we can't avoid touching on sex and violence, sexual violence, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is about positive experiences.
And coincidentally, there's an entire second curriculum called about sexual harassment that is a paired curriculum to the one I'm trained in to teach. It's that complex a topic. So that's part of why we say, okay, that's a whole other huge thing, and it's important, critical that we talk about it, but it's not the focus of this. And then I think the first thing that's important as a framework going forward into this talk, and I should check, how long do we have for this talk? Just someone let me know.
You have however much time you need, basically.
Don't tell me
after
that. We'll be here all
this
day.
is a Q&A with you, so we can push that forward how far we need to.
Perfect.
Just take your time.
Okay, great, thanks. So as a framework for talking about sex and sexuality, it's important that we know what we're talking about, because the languages we use to talk about intimacy are different based on the focus of that conversation. There's 5 of them.
So we're starting. Here we go.
Ta-da!
I'm gonna write frantically while this goes. And when I tried this before, 5 languages, it showed up mirror image.
Yeah, I think that's gonna happen.
This, can anybody read that, or is that totally mirror?
It's totally
readable.
It's readable. It's only mirror image for us. Okay, good.
That's
Good.
Okay, so this is something I advise you get. This is a note-taking opportunity if you like taking notes. This is something that is an active tool for your game design purposes going forward. Also for your play going forward. Knowing about these languages will help you play through romantic situations more smoothly, and it will help you design games that support romantic situations more effectively. So, are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready. Name the first.
Has everybody got their pens and papers who wants them? He said I had as long as I wanted.
All right.
All right. So the first language of sexuality is scientific. And this is incredibly important that people learn at a young age, that you know the scientific names for your body parts and scientific functions and all that stuff. I'm just going to talk.
Yeah, no, this is your part.
Okay. You have to know when you are a young kid, the names for your, like all the practical names, like this is your nose, this is your elbow, this is your vulva. You have to know these things if you have a vulva. So all that sort of stuff builds competence and confidence, so that when you hit adolescence, I mean, first of all, heaven forfend that there's something that you need to talk to a doctor about earlier. But it's critical that you know these terms heading into adolescence and adulthood, so that you can talk effectively with medical professionals if there is a problem. It's a place of empowerment. If you can go in as a 16-year-old boy and say, one of my testicles is twisted, and I need to have you check for testicular extortion, like torsion, which is very serious. That's a really big place of empowerment for a young person, instead of saying one of my balls hurts, so learn the terms so that you are empowered.
And it's also
distancing.
So
this is the place in game design where using scientific language creates distance. It's cold, it's clinical, it's sterile, even
depersonal, impersonal.
Yep. So anytime that in game design or game conversation, if we're playing a game together and I'm feeling like it's getting too intimate and too intense, I can use scientific language to create distance. And if I have some sort of villain, I can use scientific language to double down on the dehumanizing effect that I'm having, that my villain is having. The example that I like to use here when I'm teaching teenagers is that I write some things, but for the sake of this, I'll just stick with, so this would be sexual intercourse, and that's the easiest, but you can imagine all of them, like all the different terms. The next language you use is familiar, and this is specifically talking about the family, and in that context, specifically talking about what you might use with other people's children to refer to their bodies, or your grandmother, or it's not necessarily the language you use in your own families. Families have a really frank and open attitude toward bodies and sexuality. Some people don't. Some families don't. So this is where you get euphemisms. They infantilize. They protect. They can be used to deny the severity or reality of things. They make things a little more fanciful. This is where you get like, so scientific would be urinate. Familial would be go potty.
I'm going to also say they disarm, like they rob the terms and the topics of impact.
Yep.
Like go potty.
Mm-hmm. They're not offensive.
I was so angry I went potty on his car.
I mean, that's so funny. Like, that would be a great line in your role-playing game to have your character. Can't you just see someone in Apocalypse World being like, I was so angry I went potty on Dremmer's car. That's kind of great.
That's kind of great.
All right.
I'm glad I thought of that.
You did.
Go ahead. Go on.
All right. So the next one is sort of peer-to-peer. This is what you use with your, who you think are peers who have a similar outlook, and when you're in a space that you know or that you think is sort of closed. When it's just your gaming group and you're not streaming, and you're making like just rude jokes together and everybody's laughing, that's fine. That's part of it.
I think rude jokes might tip over into another. This is like take a leak, right?
Yeah.
I gotta take a leak.
I gotta go take a leak. Or the thing that like you don't see a lot, right? Where, you know, people of a certain body type will sometimes be complaining about certain things in their body, and they're like, oh my God, my boobs hurt. I cannot stand this, you know? It's where you're having peer-to-peer connection. And this creates social bonds. It creates a feeling of likeness between you and the other person. I super love some of the stuff that's happening now in regard to gender, as we become more aware of diversity of gender, and finding the new commonalities between, you know, what is common to women, to the set of all women, and then what is common to the different set of people experiencing childbirth, and like what's the little bit there that's women experiencing childbirth. It's very different. I love it. It's exciting. So that's the peer-to-peer language. The next language is vigorous, and that is like, okay, we got urinate, go potty, I gotta pee, and vigorous,
piss.
It would be piss, yeah, for sure. Or especially piss off.
Yeah, or piss on, like I pissed on his car. That's much more vigorous than.
So that's
I took a leak on his car. That doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah, that's like you pissed on his tire. What the heck, man? Yeah. Anyway, the point is enough of that. The point is that a vigorous, yes.
I gotta go with it. I was so angry I pissed on his car. I was so drunk I took a leak on his car. Yeah,
different. So vigorous is sexy. It's hot. It can be used to offend. It can be used on purpose to isolate or do social violence too. Like, you know, this is where you have all of the sex-related slurs and hate speech, for lack of a better word. You know, there are words that we all have real personal discomfort with, and yeah, and it's different for everybody. But I'm going to take this opportunity to say, as a mother of 3 adult sons, motherfucker is the most violent thing I can hear. It is so upsetting to me, because I know the history of sexual violence in other times and places. It's tough.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
But it conveys so much in, in like a lots of movies, or, I mean, I know what you mean, and I know that it's not that.
Right.
But it fits within that vigorous category. Anyway, and then, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then the last is intimate. And this is the language between lovers in a romantic or sexual situation, which is highly personalized. It may pull from any of the other languages. It may be something else entirely. And it's really not something that I have found a way to successfully model in a game that I've designed so far. Because it's so personal.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I can't prescribe or predict what language you are going to use with your lover during an intimate moment. That's on you and them to figure out. So that's the 5 languages of sexuality, and using them in terms of play and game design to create distance or infantilize or establish a common ground or do social violence.
Well, I think that the main purpose of the vigorous language is not to do social violence.
Yes, true.
I think that that's a marginal purpose that's sort of outside of our scope today here. I think that the main purpose of that vigorous language is to
be vigorous.
Be vigorous is
it's exciting and sexy.
To get a rise, so to speak. It's to
nicely done.
It's to startle. It's to
shock,
alert, like to bring someone's to command someone's attention, to get someone's attention.
Yeah. We've been going with the urinate thing, but I don't really know if there's a good vigorous description. I mean, piss on his car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. But yeah, and I think that specific to Apocalypse World, that's where we use it a lot. Is vigorous language. There's also an interesting pacing effect of using these language, and vigorous language has an immediacy and a speed to it that is very different than the familiar language or the scientific language. So if you go through Apocalypse World and change out everything for familiar language, it's gonna slow right down.
I think that
just the feel of it.
This is a really idle thought. This is not on the outline. I think that in 2008, when we started working on Apocalypse World, I at least really felt that I must startle people. I must command their attention. Sure. And I think that if I were to write Apocalypse World now, I would use the peer-to-peer equalizing language.
It'd be different. The world has changed.
It'd be a very different.
The world has changed since 2008, and language, the ways that we structure it would be different.
Yep.
And that's why Burned Over, among other things.
Among other things. And Burned Over isn't. Yeah. Anyway.
So that's another thing, is like everything continues to evolve. And how you play and how you design now is going to be different than how you play and how you design years from now.
Should we move on to the 2 stories?
Yeah.
Or should we take questions for a second?
Oh, let's take questions for, let's take a couple questions if there are any, because that would be a good moment. Vincent could have a sip of coffee, for example.
Yeah.
I don't see any questions in the log.
Excellent.
But maybe anyone?
Yeah, I think that's fine. If they just go in the chat, and as they come up, we'll figure that out, because there may not be questions now, but there might be questions later. Or it might be magically perfectly clear, which would be great.
Let me see what this is.
Yeah,
I
that's
have turned on the chat.
I've been seeing it all along, because it just pops up.
Oh, okay.
All right. So next bit is the 2 stories.
Yeah, more visual aids here. Oh, I can't see the screen. So would you click it back to people? Sorry about that.
What did you do here? Oh, okay.
Yeah, just click.
All right.
All right. Story number 1.
Yep.
This will look familiar to all of us. Story number 1. Like that?
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. That is a railroad, is what that is. And it goes from point A to point B. And what is point A?
Oh, okay.
Point A is their eyes meet.
The eyes meet, yeah.
And actually, we should probably do it this way. It goes to point A, to point B, point C, point D, point E,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
ending on point O.
Oh.
I'm such a child.
Okay, so the deal with the railroad story, it's one we've all seen 1,000 times. We're very familiar with it. It's, you know, they meet, and then the successive thing of like, do they, don't they, do they, don't they, you know, they hold hands, they have dinner, it's extremely linear progression. Ending
First
with,
date, first kiss.
yeah, and then ending with orgasm.
Do they get married?
Or do they not?
Do they or don't they? And
it's one story. That's how that story goes. We've seen it 1 billion times.
yes. And so you put barriers in the way of the railroad that could derail it.
Oh no, star-crossed lovers, they're of opposite houses. Oh no, he's in a coma. Oh no.
He's a time traveler.
He's a time traveler. Yeah. Whatever. Oh no, that kiss, they were secretly brother and sister and nobody knew until the next movie.
Is that...
Anyway, we know that story. It goes that way.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything more about it?
I don't know. And the other story is
A web.
a web.
Yeah.
Should draw it as a dots around.
They're gonna need to be a lot bigger than that.
There
There you go. All right. So
give me a second here with the
the
visual aid.
the things that we look at, you know, doing this as a sex ed class would be, here's the linear story and how it puts pressure on both parties to conform to this story. And if things happen out of order, it's a problem. You know, if they sleep together on the first night and then the whole rest of the movie is about like, oh God, was that a mistake? So teaching this as like, look at how the pressure builds, and it's all this like very, very constrained, this is the way it happens. If anything happens differently, it's a problem. And it puts both parties in the romantic situation under a lot of pressure in a way that isn't always the most interesting story. So
Okay, so here's story 2.
this is
That's a circle of dots, as you can see. So this dot is first kiss. This dot is eyes meet. This dot is
cooking together,
Go
go for a walk,
This dot is
party with friends,
date.
Yep.
This dot that is big O.
Sex.
Married. Meet.
And then on this,
The parents.
Yeah.
So that is how that story looks. And there's no progression around it. And instead, wait, is this how this part goes? Instead, any barrier or any disconnect is the source of drama. So for instance, why will you hold my hand but not meet my parents?
Yeah. And so that goes, that what that looks like in terms of designing games or and we'll get to that a little bit more later, is that you could start at any point around here and go to any point across here. Like maybe this happens and then that happens and then that happens. This is not a whiteboard. And then that happens, you know, so it's an intimacy web instead of a linear path. That we acknowledge that all of these are intimate acts, and there could be 1,000 more intimate acts that create romance and intimacy and sexuality, and that we get to choose what that story looks like.
And none of these in particular is the goal.
Right.
And none of them is where you start, and none of them is where you end. None of them is happily ever after.
Right.
The story progresses in its own path.
Yeah. And so the barrier, I feel like I need a different color marker. Oh well, we don't. No.
We have plenty of markers. You asked for it.
I did.
I lied.
All right. Yes,
Rich
Alexandra is exactly right. It's like play to find out in Apocalypse World. Ding 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 ding. And so what happens is that the story happens when, like Vincent said, you know, you'll hold my hand but not meet my parents. What's up with that? Or, you know, we're engaged, but, you know, I don't really know if I want to do this. That sort of thing.
Right. We're engaged, but you take over the kitchen and don't let me cook with you.
Don't do that.
No, I'm not talking about you. Also, we're not being engaged.
Okay. So that's where, from a design point of view, you're looking at how do I design for that space, make that the fruitful void space.
And this is concretely in Apocalypse World that those special moves, those sex moves, those are not the end. Those aren't your goal. Those are a point on this circle of interactions that you have with the other characters. And if you wind up at that point, you do, and if you don't, you don't, and that's totally cool. But at no point is that final. Like they're designed to make it not final. Like that's a thing that is now in your relationship, but it's not your relationship. It doesn't define your relationship.
Yeah, I want to talk specifically about the driver, and how that move, the driver's sex move of like, okay, cool, but you don't own me and I'm out of here. That is a whole story, right? Like that's a very interesting break between, I mean, it's not here, but pretend. That's an interesting break between we've had sex and we're sharing a meal together, right? And the driver's like, okay, cool, we had sex, but I'm not going to do any of those other intimacy things with you because it's scary as hell. That's a whole story arc to explore that may or may not end with the driver changing playbooks because they figured something out about their intimacy and how they want to react and interact with other people. It's a place that doesn't get a lot of exploration in Apocalypse World that I hear about anyway, because I think a lot of people do see it as like, oh, this is the end. You know, this sex move this is how they always respond, and that's the end of their story. And it's super not. It's just like this whole other possible door.
Yeah.
So yeah. You more to think?
No,
No.
definitely. Sandra asks if Sandra asks if we're gonna. Did everybody see that? Does everybody see the chat?
Everybody sees the chat. Who wants to? Yeah.
All right. No.
We're not adding any reined-in sex moves for Burned Over because it is for 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's not for 13-year-olds.
It has to include 13-year-olds in its audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not for 13-year-olds. Everybody can play it, but the point is, it has to be inclusive to people for whom this whole situation, they're on the edge of it, and it is brand new to them. So, and that also means we are aware that means it will push down, and there will be 11-year-olds who play this. So that is part of our design space there is to deal with intimacy in a different way in Burned Over.
Maybe a new edition of Apocalypse World with the whole relationship. How long do you want that book to be? Do you want that book to be 800 pages long? Oh my God.
You're absolutely welcome. Thank you for asking.
Alexandra, yes, that's
yeah.
That's good.
The good of if the driver misses, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, that's the exact design space in those sex moves, is looking at what is easy and what is scary about intimacy. There are several other PBTA games that have dealt with those as intimacy moves or as threads or bonds or other ways to get at this question of intimacy, because within the conversation of role-playing games is that like the key questions, some key questions of how do I communicate with you? How do we connect? How do we understand each other? And that's intimacy, and it can be an intimacy of 1,000 different kinds of intimacy. It doesn't have to all be driving toward a supportive intimacy relationship where we are heart companions or family or lovers or anything else that has a positive spin. Sometimes your intimacy with someone is not lovely, but those questions are about how do we relate to one another.
Yep.
All right, what else?
Well, next on our outline is, so those are the two stories.
Yep.
Did you want to talk about some examples, or have we covered the examples we want to talk about? I want to say a little bit about my game Amazons. Has anybody seen my game Amazons? It's in Worlds Without Master, so you may not have seen it.
You can talk about it anyway.
I'll talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
Amazons is a game for 2 players and then any number of GMs. And the 2 players play Amazons who are absolutely committed to each other. These two characters who, through thick and thin, they've been together for a while, and they will be together. The game, but it's not. There's little or no mention of sex in it. They may or may not be sexually involved, and it doesn't matter to the game.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was going to say about that more than that. Oh, there's a cool thing in it where one of the moves in Amazons is to commit to violence.
Yep.
And the rule is that if one of the Amazons ever commits to violence against the other, the game ends, and we never know how it turns out. That's the end of the game, the hard end of the game.
Yeah, because it breaks their relationship in some way that we don't get to find out.
Yeah.
But I think from a design, designing around intimacy and consent and romance, I think that's a really good example, because it's another way that can go, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are absolutely intimate companions.
Yeah.
The question of whether they're lovers is incidental, really.
Yeah.
But that's a game that examines, when so many games and so many stories are looking at the first part of how do the characters come to that place of committed intimacy, and Amazons looks at committed intimacy and how is it tested and if it survives.
Amazons is not about testing that intimacy. Like you are in it together, or the game ends.
Yeah.
But I wrote this game. Who knows my Wizard's Grimoire games? This is ridiculous.
Well, we said we were going to talk about examples.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about examples. So the Wizard's Grimoire games are similarly for a small number of player characters and a larger number of GMs. And one of them is called The Thief and the Necromancer. And so if you're playing the Necromancer, so there are 2 player characters, a thief and a necromancer. It's a sword and sorcery Bronze Age. Yeah. One of you plays the thief and one of you plays the necromancer. We should talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that in the Q&A.
I love those games. So one of you plays the thief and one of you plays the necromancer. And if you're playing the necromancer, your job is to, your goal in the game is to follow your necromantic ambitions into trouble, right? You got to go places, you got to do things, you got to dig up corpses, you got to talk to ghosts, you got to do the things. And if you're playing the thief, you're in this committed friendship relationship. You're both from hard origins, and you've thrown in together to try to make better of your lives. And so if you're playing the thief, your goal in the game is to find the boundaries of your friendship. And you may discover that your friendship has no boundaries, but you may discover that your friendship has boundaries. It may take 10 minutes, it may take many sessions, it doesn't matter. So the way it works is the necromancer's like, so I need a quart of human blood. And the thief is like, oh my God, what are we in for?
It's a thing. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Thank you for indulging me on that one.
Do you feel indulged?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so what else do we want to check? I'm checking a couple other things to see if we've hit everything.
The other thing we were going to talk about was consent and communication tools.
Yes. Oh God, yes. Can you start that?
Yes, but I feel weird looking at the wrong screen.
Okay, fine. Here we go.
So not the first one.
I feel like if we just hung out and chat, there's so many, like, we've been together for almost 31 years.
Yep.
So a lot of the tools that we talk about are things that we practice all the time. Like I had this tool set in terms of intimacy and navigating consent and holding one's own boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries. I had that firmly in hand by the time I was 15, and constantly iterating on it, of like, how do I make this work in terms of that communication piece of connect with other people and be understood. So, oh, you're great. Me too. But I feel like that's part of what makes us able to design together, is that we have a shared desire to communicate and connect. And we constantly iterate. Like some of the things we say in Apocalypse World about, like, oh, hold on, that didn't go how I intended. Let's try again. We do that because it's valuable. And because if you're going to commit to being in an intimate relationship, you need to also commit to messing up and being wrong and realizing that you have, like, gone down a path that you don't want to do. And
you do it.
I'm better. I'm better at the little heart thing.
Yeah,
Is that like you gotta bend your finger? There you go. See, it works. So you have to commit to that sort of thing, and that's another piece that is challenging in games and game design, is like figuring out how you support players that you may never see in making these commitments to this conversation.
Yeah.
That involves intentionally going into places that are fictionally, that are charged and confront you with your own humanity and your own mortality and your own ethics on purpose. So, like, there's ways where that's a lot harder than navigating everyday intimacy, but the practice of it, of like, where is our conversation clear, is really important. Yeah.
So what I want to say about consent and communication tools, first of all, I don't like the term safety tools because that's a big promise to make somebody.
Yeah.
And that's not really, I don't feel like I can promise anybody safety.
No.
Because you don't know. You never know.
It's like trigger warnings. I can tell you, here's my content, here's what I'm dealing with, here's what I'm going to try to do, here are the tools, the communication tools. But I can never say what's going to trigger someone else's emotional response. And I can't guarantee that you're going to be safe. I can say, here are some tools to help support your communication.
Yeah, exactly. So the main thing I want to say about consent and communication tools is that when you design a game, you create the baseline of consent and communication for that game. And that, for me, it's really important to integrate, to build a system for consent and communication into the fundamental design from the bottom. And my view is that whether you do that on purpose or not, that's what you've done. Whatever you create, that is the integrated system for communication and consent that your game has.
Right.
And so you're well served to pay attention to it. You're well served to design on purpose for consent and for communication.
Yeah.
And then it's really useful for anybody or everybody who plays your game to also bring outside of the game tools that exist outside of the game, across games, that they're comfortable and familiar with, to support them in particular playing your game.
Can I? No, go ahead. I have a couple things I want to add.
Okay. And so that's.
Okay, we're going to take that in questions,
yeah,
but let's.
I'm going to ask you to expand that question. I'm not sure I quite get it. But so in a game like Apocalypse World, the seduce or manipulate move does not let you tell another player what their character does. It only gives you the carrot or the stick, right? And so that is the foundation of consent and communication around seduction in Apocalypse World. Is you can't say, I hit a 10+, so I seduce you.
Yeah.
You can only say, I hit a 10+. Well, I mean, I'm not going to say, as a game designer, you shouldn't do this. I'm going to say, as a game designer, you should do this on purpose. You should know when you're doing this and when you're not. Because, like, there are theoretical times when it would be fine. Well, no. Apocalypse World is not one of those times. I don't know whether your game is one of those times. I don't know.
Just chill out.
But so
there you go.
But so that creates the baseline of consent and communication. And then if people want to bring script change or the X card or the Luxton technique in on top of that, that's great. That's fantastic. To meet the needs of the individual group with tools that they're familiar with, that they don't have to. A lot of the times the game design can be opaque. Yeah. To especially players who aren't really familiar with it. Yep. And to have an outside of the game tool that you can use is a good practice.
I want to talk a little bit about how, like, languages of sexuality create a safety tool.
Yeah.
If you are familiar, gosh, it is getting dark in here. It's raining, and it's going to continue to rain. Can you turn on the light?
Yeah, I'm going to turn on that one so we're not backlit.
Sounds good. If you're familiar with like the different languages, that does. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay.
I'm going to grab a water.
Cool. One of the things that the languages of sexuality does is gives you a tool about creating distance and creating intimacy, creating like assertive forward action versus like soothing, let's go potty now. You'll feel comfortable. Trust me, little 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 30-year-old. We've been sitting at this table for 2 hours drinking like whatever you're drinking. Thank you for hydrating. Bio break. Get up and go pee. You're going to have more fun in the next couple hours. I'm telling them because it's important.
Are you subtweeting me over there?
Vincent's going to get water right now. So yes, it was really great when I was running games at conventions when I was pregnant with Tovi, because I could say, okay, that's it. I need water and I got to go pee. Water in, water out. Everybody go. And everybody did. It was fabulous. But that sort of safety tool where it's external to the game, and you can watch people do this at the table even before we had terms like the flower or X card or script change. You could watch people take a cigarette break, although practically nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Or get up to get chips, or start cracking jokes.
Yep.
A lot.
Or, you know, just step the language back.
Yep.
Or switch person. Instead of saying I do this, say
my character
does this, or
yeah.
my character's name, you know.
Yeah.
Drummer does this.
Drummer does this. Yeah. So once you see that, you can't unsee it. You know, once you see people using ways to create safety for themselves, create distance and intimacy for themselves, which is in ways what a safety tool does.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. I had a point, but I forgot it. It'll come back around if it's important.
Yep.
Do we want to see if there's questions?
Is that what we're ready for?
Well, I mean, we can check. We'll check. How to Okay. All right. So Alexandra has some excellent questions. How to communicate the content, especially problematic content. Yeah. Okay. This is part of what this actually gets back to my point. So thank you. It's about knowing what you signed up for. If I'm gonna play D&D, I know what I'm signing up for in a certain way. If I'm going to play,
I mean, part of the problem with D&D, excuse me, everybody, part of the problem with D&D is that you don't.
Well, when I run it, you do.
Right, exactly.
I'm running AD&D, Keep on the Borderlands, very, very sporadically for our middle son, who's about to be 20, and a couple of his friends. You know, we've been playing through it for the last couple years, very occasionally. It's super fun. I love D&D so much. AD&D. I love AD&D. Anyway, the point is that if you know what you signed up for, you are willing and able to do a whole different level of consent. That if I know I'm signing up for a game where other people are going to be coloring on my character sheet, metaphorically, of, oh, you do this and you have this reaction, and I know that that's part of the thing, great. But if I didn't sign up for that, I'm going to feel really like pissed and invaded and annoyed of like, don't tell me what my character does. My own games are a little weird in that, like 1001 Nights says on the cover, beautiful stories of the Arabian Nights, and it's like cutthroat social orchestrating.
Right.
And it's fabulously fun. But here's the safety tool that I designed in that game is the layered stories, where you have you, and then you have your court level character, and then you have the character that character is playing within the story. And the amount of like grief and brutality that happens to that second layer character is just amazing. Like they get devoured bloodily, or they get like horrible things happen to that character because I've given the player a level of distance, safety remove, emotional space of like, okay, I'm Meg and I'm playing Hakim the barber in the palace, and Hakim the barber is now cast as you know, the vicious tiger who's stalking the princess across the desert. And like I Meg have enough safety that like that tiger can just act. I can be like so ruthless and so bloody, and it's so exciting.
And you can accept all kinds of violence to
yes.
the tiger. Like,
oh my God, you shot the
hunted.
tiger through the eye, and
Right.
it's great. Bring it. You know, so that's part of the design aspect of designing toward consent, is giving people the tools to feel safe. So that when people come back in 1001 Nights and you come back to the court level, you are safe because your character is still alive and fine, and you're ready to do the social, you know, cutthroat social politics there. And that's another example of designing for consent. All right. What else?
But Alexandra, it's hard because, like, as the designer, I don't know what the player is going to bring, and
Right.
so, like, I can put a warning. I can put a content alert, right? A content warning on what I, as the author, what we as the creators have included in the game, but we can only guess what the players are going to do.
Yeah, and
So I don't know.
that to me, that's really huge. You know, that we want to establish as much as we can. You as a designer dealing with intimacy issues, you need to do the best job you can, and then you need to admit and recognize that other people's boundaries are going to be different, and there are ways they're responsible for their own boundaries. In the same way we're ultimately responsible for our own pleasure, we are ultimately responsible for our own boundaries. I cannot go around the internet and make sure that everybody is playing my games in a way that supports my vision. I can just do the very best I can to articulate that vision so that the conversations happening are overall good.
Yep.
I think we may be 2 questions. There are starting to be some good questions in the chat, so why don't we just go through that? Is that good by you? Yeah. We've been talking for about an hour? Yeah, it's time for questions. Okay.
Okay, we're doing it.
All right, so we talked a little bit about Alexandra's question, how to communicate the content, especially problematic content.
Yep.
Alexandra, if we've answered that great. If not, give us another follow-up question, but flag what we've done.
Oh yeah, no. So however weird it will sound, I feel safer to play poison because awful things are told up front.
Yeah, but that's part of this point where I was like about the consent.
Yeah.
You know, going in, like Vincent says right on the cover of Poisoned, which is all Vincent. I did not help write that. This is one of the things that's weird, like, because a lot of our games come out with both our names on them, but there are games that we write independently.
I think Poison doesn't have your name on it.
Yeah, no.
If you want your name on it, I'll put it there. But
no, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Figured.
But yeah, that's exactly part of the point. You know, right on the cover what this deals with, and if it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's fine. Oh my God, that's another part of like the sexuality and romance and consent in games is like, I want you to know right off the bat if this is for you or not for you. Because if it's for you, then we're going to have a great time, or you're going to have a great time with my group. And if it's not for you, good Lord, please don't do it. And that could be anything. You know, if the idea of memory loss is terrifying to you, don't play Siren. That's how that goes. All right. Okay, so we did that one. We talked about the X card.
How to handle lasting relationships in a harsh world such as Apocalypse World, where investing time and feelings in NPCs is basically asking for pain and trouble in the long run. How to stay sane.
Oh, that's like a real world question, Sandra. That's a really good real world question. I think my answer, and this goes for in Apocalypse World and in any game design.
I have some Apocalypse World specific answers.
Awesome.
Do you want me to start with those?
Okay. Start.
Then
I'll be brief.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
You have to in game design and in like life, but you have to balance the horror with the mundane reality. You have to, if you're trying to build a lasting relationship in a harsh and difficult world, as a MC, you have to give them downtime. If you want that to happen, if that's part of what you're looking to play and looking to have in your games, you have to give them periods of downtime. Beats when it's just, it's a gorgeous day, let's go for a walk. Or, we're having a really nice meal together of, whatever passes for that. You have to give them downtime. The very well-known arc of relationships in the real world that happens when there's incredible crisis and struggle. And then once you have come through that incredible crisis or struggle, there's an endorphin release and there's a natural drawing of intimacy of like, oh my God, we got through that together. And extremely lasting relationships form under those conditions. And so that's one of the big things. If you're looking for lasting relationships, give them space to happen. If it's just nonstop, you know, there's no breathing. There's no breathing room. You can't. You can give them downtime that's like a couple seconds of peace and beauty, and it will make your storytelling richer. You know, if you're in the middle of a battle and you have like tons of stuff going on, and you just throw in a detail of, you know, there's a lull and in the battle, and you can just hear the sound of a bird in the distance. It makes everything richer. So, and that helps with sanity, because we can't live in crisis all the time. It's not good for any part of us. And so finding those moments where we can connect to humanity in a sustaining way really makes a difference. And that's my answer for game design and life. You know, we are in quarantine here. Nobody in the house is sick, but you know, it's mighty, and we have friends on the first lines in the hospital locally, you know, working to keep people safe. It's pretty high stakes. And so having moments where we can go out and see the honeybees in the crocuses blooming in our yard, and we are so lucky to have a yard, is so sustaining. So that's my answer there. Do you have more to add?
I have some Apocalypse World specific stuff to say.
Go for it.
So, the question about this is lasting relationships in Apocalypse World.
Yeah.
Apocalypse World is a dangerous, horrible place where investing in someone is a risk. That's a real risk. So, as a player who wants to do this, who you found an NPC you're connected with. So first of all, the safest relationships to form in Apocalypse World are with the other player characters.
Clearly.
They have some protections built in that help preserve that investment, right? If you fall for an NPC, get the other PCs on board to provide protection for that relationship. Because they can do that. You cannot preserve a relationship by yourself as a player in Apocalypse World with an NPC. There is one thing you can do. It's hard, but I'll tell you.
Right.
But long before you're able to do that thing, you need to get the other players also invested in the relationship, and so taking those downtime moments to portray that relationship in a positive way with the other players as your audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
That helps get those players invested in that relationship, and they want to see it succeed, and they will bend their resources towards seeing it succeed.
Yep.
So that's an important thing. And the thing you can do is you can spend your experience to advance the seduce or manipulate move and make that person an ally, your NPC an ally, take them out of the threat system and make them an ally. And so that takes sessions and sessions and sessions. So those relationships,
or it takes really aggressively driving toward that. I mean, I would say sessions and sessions for sure.
All right, well, that's fine.
Maybe not sessions.
And like, my point is, it doesn't happen when you see the NPC, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so those relationships, the game, I'm holding Apocalypse World here, the game knows about and wishes you the best and good luck.
Good luck.
And there are paths to creating lasting relationships as a player in Apocalypse World. But it's hard and it's dangerous and it's risky. And you have to do it together.
Yeah.
And you have to do it.
I think the other path I see is retiring to safety.
Yeah, that doesn't take your NPC with you necessarily.
Not necessarily,
but
like it allows you, like from a player standpoint, I feel like retiring to safety allows me to put that, like, okay, those people are safe. I can sort of emotionally, intellectually say, okay, Those
Yeah.
are safe. Now I'm going to play this new other different character
Yeah.
that's not safe.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
Good question. Thank you.
Yay. Okay. In D&D, you
The-
didn't know what you signed up for. Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically about consent, because the ways that D&D creates and supports an adversarial relationship between the MC, between the DM and the players, undermines a ton of consent, and it creates all kinds of unhealthy relationship issues, and like player timidity about forming any kind of relationship, out of fear, and the bleed, the spillover to real world relationships within gaming groups, not just D&D, but other games as well, that are not aware of the power dynamics. Yeah, it can be a whole mess.
Yeah, well, when you design your game, you design the baseline of consent and communication
Yep.
that the players will have in that game.
Yep.
So, good luck.
Yeah. All right, so we are going back up. Can you please explain the driver sex move in more detail? What does it mean, and what do the options mean? Paul
Sure
asks this.
thing. If you and another character have sex, I have it open in front of me. Roll plus cool. On a 10 plus, it's cool, no big deal. So that means that it does not affect your relationship, right? That you, from your point of view, the other, and mechanically,
Yeah.
like it might affect your relationship from within the perspective of you playing your character, right? You're free to make those
Yeah.
decisions. That's really what it means, is you're free to make romantic decisions or relationship decisions from there. On a 7 to 9, give them +1 to their history with you on their sheet, but give yourself -1 to your history with them on yours. So that means they know you better and you know them less well. So this is a form of withdrawal, and where you as the driver are withdrawing from them.
Yeah.
And so they see you more clearly because you've done this weird thing that reveals yourself, right?
And you're
They see you
uncomfortable with
more
it.
clearly, right? And so they're better able to help you if you need help. They're better able to interfere with you if you need interfering with.
If they feel like it,
Yeah.
you know.
But you close your eyes to them.
You're like,
So
that was too much. I'm backing off.
And
I don't
this
wanna-
means that when they need your help, they can't rely on you.
Yeah.
And when they're doing something that you don't want them to do, they're more out of your control because you've closed your eyes to them. And then on a miss, you got to go take -1 ongoing until you prove that it's not like they own you or nothing. So, -1 ongoing, that is hardcore.
Yes,
that's bad biz.
It is bad biz. Like, the driver
when
freaks
I'm-
out
when I'm
when
the
faced
GM,
with intimacy.
When I'm the GM, anything you do to prove that it's not like they own you or nothing stands. Like, that counts. So, like, if you're like, I completely ignore them for 2 days, I'm like, done. You know, that's fine. Or like, I go eat dinner with somebody else.
Yeah.
Done. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, anything on. Can everybody see this? I can't tell where the camera is. Anything on there that breaks the intimacy between them, when I'm the GM, I accept as proving that they don't own you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. I hope that answered.
All right. So, Alessandra and Sandro talk a little bit about consent and organizing session zeros. Yes, please do that. You know, all the tools of like, how do we want to be together? What do we want to do?
So I don't really, organizing session zeros is something that has sort of passed me by. And I think it's fine. Like, insofar as I understand it, my guess is that it's like every other consent and communication tool, which is that it's something you bring when you need it and you're comfortable with it and you want it. But you design into your game the baseline for that session zero, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so
for me, I perceive it as a little bit coming out of, you know, in ways relating to first session here of like, okay, what's our world? What are we doing? How are we doing this together? When are we getting together next time? maybe we make characters, sort of thing. I think it's great. I think a session 0 was great. I think it gets everybody on the same page in a way that we may not have done before. All right. And now we've moved Q&A session to calendar. Okay, good. Do I not like poisoned?
It's not for her.
It's not for me.
It's not designed for her.
Yeah.
There's no reason why she would like it.
Yeah. So that's a great thing, I think, about there being so many games, even that we design to, together or apart, but are being designed in the same household. They're not all for each other. I'm like, okay, whatever, and that's fine. I've played Poisoned. I had a great time playing Poisoned. That's not my particular jam. Pirates were never really my thing.
Poisoned is I've made 3 games about Christianity as I was coming to peace with my upbringing, and Poisoned is the 3rd of them, and it's a hateful game about religion, and like Meg doesn't have
I don't have the same baggage.
It's
yeah, like I don't.
It speaks to me. It's my kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's just like something that everybody will determine over time. Speaks for you.
Yeah,
not to
and
me.
it doesn't anymore. Like that was a lot of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just in the same thing as everything else, right? There's no reason why we should all like the same food or the same movies or the same music or the same sex acts or the same games. So thank goodness there's lots. Yeah.
Y plus cool, honestly, because of the driver's best stat.
Yep.
And like cool also means cool under fire, and like your ability to keep your cool, and like it says right in the move on a 10 plus, it's cool, you're cool, everything's cool. But when a playbook move doesn't line up with the best stat, I've done it on purpose to complicate the character, and this is a case where the move lines up with the best stat.
Olga asks that we go through the Battle Babe sex move. Can we do that?
Oh yeah, sure. And Alexandra says the safest sex relationship is kind of with the Battle Babe. It's true. It's kind of with the Battle Babe. The Battle Babe special. If you and another character have sex, nullify the other character's sex move. Whatever it is, it just doesn't happen. And that is because...
Hello, cat. Excuse me, cat.
The Battle Babe is both unattainable and
not giving.
No, and it doesn't like... So there are 2 sides to that, right? And one is that so the Battle Babe isn't drawn into the drama. The Battle Babe is either removed from the drama by being unattainable, or is removed from the drama by being above it.
Yeah.
The Battle Babe is not tempted by the hard holder's sex move, not tempted by anybody, and is free.
Yeah.
Is also not constrained, like not I don't know what
well, and also all of
not tempted and not trapped.
Right. And all of them have a little bit of like that can go either way, right? Either the Battle Babe is like, it's all good, or there's a tipping point of that, which is they're just using people for their own, like, cool, whatevs, that was fun. And other people may have emotional investment, other PC, like, but I want to give you presents now. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
And it's, it's from the source material. It's like, I don't know. I know an ace player who only plays Battle Babes because of it. Yeah. But it's not just the ace option. It's also the this is stupid, I just want to have sex with who I want to have sex with.
Right. Option. Yep. Okay. What games make you feel comfortable? Oh my God, what a huge question. It depends on the moment and the interest. For me, it's any game where we have where it can say on the cover what it is, not necessarily on the cover, you know what I mean, like where it's honest about its content. Like I can play games that are just brutal, bloody slogs, full of all kinds of awfulness. If I know what I'm signing up for, I'm good with that. So that is the comfort space. I don't need to have it all be like little sweet, lovely little games, because sometimes those are really not comfortable and safe. But I do need it to be forthright at some level, and sometimes that's even just the MC saying what we're gonna do, and here's what the shape of this game is like. So that's, you know, that's what I need to be comfortable with. What games make me feel comfortable. And so those are the kinds of games I play. And so basically be like games I play. Sorry, I can't name names in the same way of like, this is what makes me comfortable. But I hope that answers your question, Alexandra.
Role-playing games make me uncomfortable.
True facts.
Like if I want to be comfortable, I'll play a card game, some board games, but role-playing games make me uncomfortable. The game that makes me most comfortable is Eat Poo You Cat.
Which is a game about confused and difficult communication. Go figure. But you know, but it supports you in going fully into that. Like there's no worries about miscommunication because that's the whole game. So it's fun.
I've got some brutal self-reckoning to do. I only design games that make me uncomfortable.
That's kind of your jam.
Kind of my brand.
All right.
Anyway.
Favorite PBTA games. Names matter so much to me. And I think it's Halska. But it's Polish, so that Z might be silent. I can get Walkowitz. Anyway, favorite PBTA games. I find myself being most fond of, thank you, you're extremely sweet. My name is Meguey, and it is amazing how often people cannot pronounce it. So it matters to me. Meg is also fine. Favorite PBTA games. I find that there's games I become invested in. You know, a lot of people, people on a regular basis, a steady basis, ask me to look at their PBTA game or ask us if we would give them the logo and, Powered by the Apocalypse stuff. So we check those over. But occasionally there'll be one that really catches me in a way, and I become invested in its success. Like I want everybody to be successful. Whatever that means to them. Go make games. Awesome. Yes. But occasionally there's a game like Sagas of the Icelanders or MASH, the medical frontlines Korean War game. That I become really invested in. So I don't know if they're my favorites necessarily, but they're the ones I sort of feel strongest connected to. In terms of playing PBTA games, God, I don't even know. It's hard to think about it. I really like some of the sort of second generation down games, like Blades in the Dark is the first generation down game, but Mutants in the Night is a second generation down game that I feel really strongly about and really like a lot. Alas for the Awful Sea, I really like. Yeah, do you have other favorites?
Yeah, totally. I'm fond of the really weird ones. So I like Wolf Spell.
Oh
I
God,
like,
Wolf Spell. Yeah.
I like Bloody Hand and Name of Bronze. Wolf Spell, for those of you who don't know it, takes read a person and read a situation and expands those 2 moves into this entire
The whole
game,
game. Yeah.
where you're warriors who've been transformed into wolves to complete a quest. And the way it says, here is what your wolf part is telling you to do. Here's what it cares about. Here's what your human part remembers and cares about. And the way it creates tension between those using read a person and read a situation is really marvelous.
Yeah.
And Bloody Hand and Name of Bronze is another one. It has only 2 or 3 moves, and it's mechanically quite removed from Apocalypse World, but you can see the relationships there. And I tend to really like PBTA games that step away from.
Yeah. Oh my God. So true. Like, I want to see what you make with it. So there's so many places to push forward. There's so many games now that I want to see how your idea reaches fulfillment. I don't want to see just like the closer a reskin to Apocalypse World it is, the less.
No! Don't say that, because those are awesome too. Like, you
I'm
can't.
not saying they're not awesome.
Yeah, you are.
I am not.
No.
Saying
Okay. Good. Because they are.
Saying,
they are awesome. Because there's nothing wrong with that game.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying I want to see. I want to see breadth.
Yeah.
I would not want to see a shelf full of things that adhere.
Oh, this is so uncomfortable. We love you all. We love you all the most, and we wish you all enormous success. And we love all your games.
Y'all, you just said you liked the weird ones.
I know.
I'm saying that too.
I do, but I did not say I don't like the normal ones.
I didn't say
so
that.
what I want to say about this.
I didn't want to see just that.
No, it's so uncomfortable for me. Okay, so may I please say that your vision is what makes your game. My vision is not what makes your game. Meg's vision.
Yes.
Your vision is what makes your game, and whatever fulfills your vision.
That's what I'm trying to say.
You should do. And the fact that I like these couple of weird games, like, it doesn't mean anything for that's games, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to see your vision.
Yeah.
Their vision. I don't want to see like people trying to be in our vision.
Yeah.
I mean?
Like,
see, that's okay.
I don't know. I'm so uncomfortable. Okay, let's talk about something else.
Okay. Sandra has a great question. This is about social dynamics at the table. Really.
That's the kind of thing I throw up my hands. Like, that's why you're there playing and I'm not. No, I mean, what I mean is, how can I possibly help you? You're the ones there playing, and I'm over here, like, I'm making breakfast or whatever.
So the question is about how to handle a situation where your players at the table have different agendas, right? Like, some of them want to just go kill monsters and loot things, and someone else wants to like make a lovely little world where they explore fantasy stuff. I mean, that's not what you say. What you say is Keeler, the gunlugger, whom I love dearly.
Keeler is Meg's
That's my character.
character,
Keeler, that's me. Everything you see in the book that's Keeler, that's me. And Butch the Chopper are all about killing and scavenging, and Marie the Brainer, Marie, we like her too, are all about social interactions and love relationships with an NPC named Rourke. Yes, they sure were. How you keep it interesting for everyone. So this is where your PC, NPC triangles really come into play, where you can have, like, Keeler and Rourke have something that they're doing together, right? Like, is Rourke on Keeler's team? Like, that's how you do that. So you have to build those triangles and look for the places where 2 PCs and an NPC have an interesting social dynamic. And I really am a fan of different colors of sticky notes to move them around on a paper and be like, okay, what if it looks like this? How does it look like this? And maybe you need to pull in other NPCs and create a more like another 2 maybe to create a more tangled web. but that's how you keep it interesting for everyone. And you're going to wind up necessarily sometimes pointing your PCs at each other with conflicting agendas. In the scenario you've laid out, if Marie just wants to build this lovely, or is all about the relationship with Rourke, the way you can give that player what they want in one way is to, have Rourke have this, going out scavenging thing, and like what's the conflict there if Rourke is also killing people and Marie is like, oh my god, no. And also putting that the other direction toward Keeler and Butch, if Rourke is like, hey, maybe I can't go with you on this killing spree, this looting thing, because I have a commitment. Like I'm gonna hang out with Marie, and then Keeler and Butch are shorthanded when they go out, and what are the ramifications there? So you create your social triangles and webs so that you can support your players in having that experience. And like I am occasionally pretty forthright with what the triangles are. So like I'm not trying to like get anybody, surprise, trapped in that. I'm like, it's a complex social situation, and Rourke is kind of in the middle of it right now. So I hope that's useful. But that's a way that I would do it. Okay, next question for Q&A. Why read a situation? Whoop, it jumped.
Why do they have prescribed lists?
Oh, yeah. I can answer and you can answer. You answer first though.
Okay, no, you better answer first.
Oh no, last time I answered first, you were like, I'm so uncomfortable.
Okay, go ahead. That was Hi friends.
The creating a list is such an accessible thing for so many people. Being put on the spot to be creative is tough. It's one of the things we do as game designers and players over and over a lot, and it's hard. And having a list of like, okay, just choose a couple is so freeing for so many people, even people for whom spontaneity and creativity is really fun. It gives you a jumping off place that is easy.
Since Apocalypse World, in several of my draft games that we haven't published, there's a final line on those moves that is, or ask a question of your own, and if the MC answers it, it stands, and if the MC doesn't, go back and choose one that's on the list.
Right.
And I like that. Sometimes those moves are really about, these are the limits of your perception, and those lists are important in that way. But in some games, a looser list that includes asking your own questions is totally reasonable. But there's nothing like a list that you choose from to make it easy and approachable and keep everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
It also, like, those lists also get the GM thinking about thinking about the situations in the game in the same way that the players are thinking about the situation in the game. It really does get everybody on the same page about what's important and what's relevant and what might happen and what can't happen. It creates a domain of action and concern and interest that everybody gets to participate in, instead of everybody bringing their own. I mean, it habituates everyone to thinking about situations in the same way.
Yeah. And it, like, what he said. Okay. Thank you, Sandro, for expanding about what we were just saying.
I'm just going to say one thing, because we kind of moved into Q&A anyway. So I'm just going to keep the recording running. but I'm going to drop in with one of the questions I prepared for in Q&A.
Hey!
So tell me, what are the favorite games you designed, and what are the best designed games you designed, and are those the same?
That's a really good question.
Oh, well, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you my experience. My experience is no doubt different, but my experience is that I have an experience, and I'm right here, like behind my eyes at the top of my nose. I have this experience that sometimes I've described as a flavor. I have a flavor behind my eyes, and from that moment, I start to compromise, and eventually there's something on paper at the end. And so best designed game means that those compromises were best in some way, right? Like the best designed game is long before it's on paper. Like it's right, it's unreal, it's imaginary. And so it's hard for me to look at my game design work and say, this is the best design, because all I see is the compromises. Because when I look at a game, what I see is the compromises between where it was not real and now it's real, and that's a process of compromise. So best designed is such a hard question. It's such a hard question.
If you take it as like, what game most closely fits your vision? Like, is there a game that's...
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
that's
I know, but like, there's got to be one or a couple that like most that hit that more closely.
They're all like, I've gotten better as a designer, and so in that's, but I also design experiments, and so which of my games is designed from the position of most strength and least experiment? Like, I don't know if that's my best designed game. Like, that's a weird thing to consider.
Yeah.
Like, much easier to tell you my most reliable game, or my most experimental game, or
we'll say those
the game that's most likely to lose audience.
We'll say those. Those would all be interesting.
Tell those. They are all interesting. Definitely.
Okay, so game most what there were three that you just said.
I don't know. My most reliable game
is
all right. So how about my most role-playing game?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Okay.
So
and then maybe the other part
God.
of the question, which is your favorite?
Which is my favorite? I hate them all. Like, no, okay. So here's how it works for me. I love a game. I'm devoted to a game. I think about nothing but a game until it comes to this particular point in its production, and it's when the design is finished and when it's almost ready to publish, and then I hate it the most.
Yeah.
So right now, my least favorite game is Under Hollow Hills.
Don't say that.
My least favorite game. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah, but don't say it again.
But like Under Hollow Hills is my most favorite game. It's a joy. Like, I love everything about that game, except everything about it.
What I'm saying here is that like layout and production is a pain.
It's hard to, like, your relationships with your own games. I find, for me, my relationships with my own games, it's hard for any of them to have space for, this is my favorite and this is my best design, this is the one I love least.
Yeah.
Like, my relationship with my own games is so
fraught.
Well, it's just so individual, game to game to game, that it's hard to compare. Like, is Midsummer Wood, right? Or Amazons. That's a game that I don't think anybody's played.
Mm-hmm.
it is possible that nobody has played Amazons without me. Not only possible, very likely. But I love that game. Like, that's totally one of my favorite games, and I think it's one of my best designed games. But it's also one of my most experimental,
Yep. I hear you.
out there weird games. It might be terribly designed. How would I know?
Yeah.
Apocalypse World is our most impactful game. I
Yeah.
don't think you can
No, you can't. I think that's
argue
true.
around that.
Yeah.
But does that mean it's our best designed game? If best design means impactful, then yes.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't mean impactful, then I don't know what.
I think for me, 1001 Nights does exactly what I want it to do. And that's, to me, in terms of design work, that's an amazing thing to be able to say. I have seen people play it in ways that I'm like, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? But that's okay, because I also know that people have, I get feedback back from that it's doing exactly what I designed it to do, and I'm very, very pleased with that. The other game that I feel like hits pretty close to that is Does It Fit the Mission, which is this tiny, tiny little game on itch that's about being a galactic museum. I love everything about that game. So I think that would be my answer. Those are the two games of mine that I feel like when I think about them and when I go back and have read over them, I don't hit things of like, I need to go back and do that. Cyron, I love Cyron. I really need to do a new issue. There are things in that there are holes in that design that I can see that I want to fix.
I have a devoted contingent of fans who tell me that over and over, like I hear this on the regular every 6 months or something, somebody says in public that In a Wicked Age is my best designed game. And I'm like, I have no idea how that could be true, but there are enough of you saying it that from some point of view, that's clearly true. I don't know. It's impossible. Thank you for asking, I guess.
Okay, next question is from Sandro then. Can you share some tips and tricks on how to weave in sexual tones in a non-cringe way, especially for shy players that are used to kill orcs but not used to hold hands with someone?
That is a very astute question. It's very difficult, and the part of that is with the comfort and safety of the players. In order to make in order to make them able to approach that subject matter, even if it is just holding hands. If the players feel that they are not in a place where they are safe doing that, they're not gonna. They're just not gonna. So I would say your first step is to replace the word sexual in that question with intimate. So that you're looking at things that are intimate, that are friendship, that are connection on an emotional level, that are not sexually charged. And that can help that transition. That if you have NPCs even that are just honestly good friends who show up and say, you're going through some rough time. I'm like, do you want to go get a drink and we'll talk about it? And talk about the physical touch, do that sort of thing where you are introducing compassion and intimacy without a overt sexual overtone, because that will begin to establish a space where that sort of thing is possible. And it's also really good for people who are more shy, because one of the things that's important is about, it's handing down the keys.
Yeah.
One of the places we're in right now in 2020 is living with the aftermath of the 80s and the effect here's a whole nother sex ed sidebar. The effect that the AIDS crisis had on sexuality and intimacy and how we talk about intimate connections. So that had such an incredibly chilling, suppressing, oh my God, sex could kill you. It wasn't just that you might get an STD or you might get pregnant or get someone pregnant, you could die. And for all of us who sort of came of age in that, who were like 12 to 20 within that time, it's huge. And now we're in a place where, because in part because of that, and then in part because of the steady decrease in communal non-sexual social activity, by which I mean roller skating rinks, hanging out on like drag strip racing, any kind of like the whole like breakdancing thing or raves or anything that brought a great number of young people, social dancing in a way that was really supported, anything that brought a number of young people together in a way that created social chaperoning, right? Where you're in a big group, so nothing super intense is likely to happen, although definitely things did. But people have an experience of how do you hold hands with somebody, you know, while you're roller skating or ice skating. You may be a shy person, but if someone who can skate a little better holds your hand, you can do a little better, and you have a social support for that to happen without it being so romantically and sexually charged. So you have the chilling effect of AIDS, and then you have the decrease in opportunities for that sort of broad-based social interaction as people become aware of their intimacy and sexuality. So now we're in a place where there are a lot of people who have not received cultural keys of like, here is how you, even as a shy person, ask someone to dance or talk to somebody they like, or, you know, all these other things. So we're in a space where there's a lot of inability to communicate around these things. So part of our job, I think, if you have those keys, is to help hand them down. And part of that is to create these spaces where it's not high pressure. Like if you are a shy person sitting down at my table to play 1001 Nights, I'm not going to I'm going to do my best to sort of get to know everybody a little bit for the couple minutes beforehand. How are we all doing? What are we all here for? Sort of thing. Got my hair. But then, like, I'm going to make my desire in 1001 Nights to hold your hand. I'm not going to be, you know, to have sex with you. And so I'm creating a space where we can move to a level of intimacy that feels comfortable and feels safe. So yeah, it is hard. But that's the start, is to think about intimacy, think about friendship, and think about compassion as a space to move toward anything that is romantic or sexual. Also, it helps a lot to be more aware of like expression diversity. That like there are people who are not highly sexual. There are people who are asexual. There are people who, you know, whatever. There are people for whom they're super sexual, but at the gaming table is not where they want to do it. So, you know, check in with that.
Okay, I'm going to read another question. So from Aleksandra Skibinska, how you two started the Apocalypse World? How it all started?
Go for it. It's your story.
I came back from Gen Con 2008 with a game by Gregor Hutton called 316. You may know it.
Oh, okay.
And I devoured it. It had been an active topic at Gen Con. you know, a bunch of us had played it before its release at Gen Con. I hadn't. I played it at Gen Con, but it was sort of the hit of the show. It was also controversial. It divided, you know, our community at the time 50-50, people who liked it and people who didn't. I was on the liked it side. And I came home and devoured the text, and it opened my brain, and I wrote the Brainer playbook, basically intact. Like everything got revised since then, but I wrote the Brainer playbook first, and then the basic moves, and then another playbook. I forget which one.
And
probably the hard holder, probably.
The Brainer first, and then the hard holder, and the basic moves. And then you said, Meg,
yeah, I said,
look at this.
Meg, look at this.
And I said, oh my God, yes. And there was a couple other pieces that I forget what my first bit into that as we in the first, but there was a piece where I was like, cool, and this and this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I was inspired by 316, and I was, you know, answering 316, speaking like not in a negative way, but 316 was a challenge that I wanted to rise to, and so this was my.
That's how it started.
That's how it started, and then you know, all of our games, one or the other of us begins it, and then some of our games, like Poisoned, is mine, and some of Meg's games are hers.
Yeah.
But for those collaborative games, still one of us started it, and so I brought Meg the Apocalypse World stuff. And by the time I was, you know, making the complete list of playbooks or whatever, outlining the set,
yeah,
you know, Meg was co-designing those with me.
Yeah.
And then it took 2 years to publish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started.
Ta-da!
Thank you. This is a fantastic story. So I will drop another of my questions. This one is a simple one. So how did you start playing role-playing games? What was your first session or your gateway game, etc.?
So I was 7 in 1978, and my next door neighbor Jenny, who was 9, no, she was 10 at the time, got the box set of D&D in 78, and so it was Jenny, who was 10, her brother Jonah, who was 9, myself, who was 7, and my younger sister, who was 5 at the time. That was my D&D group, and we played like for the next, let's see, 6 years, until I like pretty much daily. They were my next door neighbors through a bunch of that time. And like, so we played a ton of stuff. We did a ton of game design, like what if we were not samurai, what if we were Jedi, what if there were dinosaurs. I think we probably did do like a one bit of ninjas, basically because nobody told us we couldn't, so we did, you know. Nobody like I don't think they were planning on it being a game that kids played, but we played the hell out of it. And then I moved to California, and it took me a year to find players there, you know, in middle school, and that was playing a lot of stuff like Robotech, setting Robotech and Macross, and I don't even know what system, but you know, there was a girl in my school who was our GM there. I played a bunch of D&D, and then I moved back across the country, and it took me a year to find community at college. Played more D&D, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk.
Yep. Ars Magica.
Ars Magica, and then we played Ars. I met Vincent at college, and then we played Ars Magica with Emily for a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my background.
When I was 9-ish, so this would have been 1980 or so, my uncle had an Atari 800 home computer, and me and my cousin used to play Zork on it. And then when we didn't have access to my uncle's computer, I would be the computer and my cousin would be the adventurer, and I would make him ride out, go north, go south, get torch, and we played that way for a little while, and then I stopped making him write the commands out.
It's really, really cool.
I didn't play D&D until college, probably.
Yeah.
I started playing published games in high school. We played Shadowrun and Talos Lanta and some Twilight 2000 when I was in high school. But
I was just now talking with a friend of mine who was my best friend in second grade, and he's quarantined somewhere else in New York City, actually, and we were talking about like all of the not yet D&D that we used to play in second and third grade, because I had been playing D&D for years by then, but he wasn't yet. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Our kids all grew up thinking this is just what you do naturally, is write role-playing games and play role-playing games. And, our kids all have their own GM styles, which is really neat, and their own writing styles, which is just the best. Like Lumpley and Sons, that is making my world to see the kids develop their own independent designs. And we are tough on them, in terms of design. It has to be good. It can't be just like, oh, this is great, it's our kids' design. No, it's got to pass. We're tough. So there's that.
Thank you very much for sharing this. This is incredible. So I'm going to follow up that with two small other questions related to that. So are you still playing any trad games? Because you're like mostly indie. If that word in 2020 still means something, but you know what I mean. So do you play trad games? And also, do you have any games in your playing history that are now a guilty pleasure? So I spent my high school years playing Shadowrun, and when I look back at that, I'm like, oh my god, this game is unplayable when I'm 30-something.
Yeah, I hear you.
I yearn for Talos Lanta, but I have not tried to play the new Talos Lanta. I have it, but I have not tried to play it. I don't know.
I would be playing Ars Magica right now. I don't know if that necessarily counts as trad, because at the time when it came out, it felt very like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah, no, it was for sure.
Like true play, multiple. It did a ton of stuff that was really groundbreaking, and it provided such an incredible space for the two of us and Emily Cairboss to world build, and then within that world develop our own mechanics. That have spilled forward into our designs and Emily's, which is really neat. I would play that now. I freaking love that game. And in terms of games now, like one of the like weird secrets of the Bakers is we don't get to play a lot of games. We don't. We're playing Under Hollow Hills.
Yeah.
We're playing Tales of Timberwind, which is Elliot and Toby's design, which is really cool to see.
Yep. You play D&D irregularly.
I play D&D when I can get all the young folk together, but now that Milou has moved to Canada, that's going to be really challenging.
We play our friends' games when they want us to. Like Elliot and I have been playing Bloody Handed Name of Bronze. So, like we played once, and
still not a
Joshua
game,
and I have played. But no, we don't. Like I don't play.
It's not a a policy decision. Like I will play a ton of things. Like what is the Marvel Heroic?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that counts as trad or not, but I love it because I get to play Beast, who is the best character, I think. And I would play that again. Like I would play a game. It's a scheduling issue. It's a scheduling. It's an emotional investment. And now it's a technology issue.
A lot of games, like I have 2 hours to play.
Yeah.
And if the game can't be really fun for 2 hours, in just 2 hours, I have a hard time committing, hard time deciding to play. a game that, and I don't trust a lot of trad games to be fun
in 2 hours.
in an hour and a half. Yeah.
I find that like watching Baker House Band, like the young set here who plays every Friday at in our house, which is, you know, I think we're in year 8 of our house, usually filling up with teenagers and young adults every Friday, to game from like 3 o'clock until 9 o'clock. The switch to trying to game over Discord is tough, you know. What is fine when they're all in the room, the focus needed over technology means that Sebastian in particular is exhausted after 2.5 hours, and it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, like I'm gonna play in a game on Monday, a tiebreaker game. Yeah. Nick Butler is the writer for Tiebreaker, and I'm excited to see. I'm doing mentor work with a senior at the high school who's on remote learning now, on his board game, and we're using Google Docs because he has crap access. Really creative stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if we answered, but that's what it is.
That's our answer.
Thank you very
We're
much.
sticking with it.
So let's drop another one. This one is Alexandra Sontowska. Why did you decide to stop selling some of your designs? What changed since publishing them?
Yeah.
Well, the only game I've stopped publishing is Dogs in the Vineyard. There are a bunch of games I no longer really promote, but you can still get them. But Dogs in the Vineyard, I have stopped publishing. And the reason is because I spent 10 minutes learning more about Utah history, and I'm not, that game in its small way helps cover up Mormon participation in genocide, and I'm not comfortable doing that anymore. You know, there are games that are exhausting to support. Like I recently talked about Poisoned, and I said, don't buy this game, don't read it, don't play it. I'll tell you everything you need to know. And it's just because I don't need to.
Well, like you said earlier, there's games that you made for a reason as part of your process of dealing with your own history.
Yeah.
And Dogs in the Vineyard and Poisoned are in those set of games. And as like, I think we all have that sometimes. Like, this is what I was dealing with then, and now I'm not dealing with that anymore, and I don't, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But you can still get Poisoned if you want it. If for some reason you want it. But Dogs in the Vineyard, I decided to stop publishing and decided to stop selling and stop making it available because of how it treats well, yeah, how it treats the history of Utah.
Yep.
So that's why.
Thank you very much. So let's go with the next one from Kamila Zalewska-Firus. What kind of romantic plots do you like and recommend to show sex and romance in positive way? Mentor and pupil, rivals, etc. Because there is a lot of toxic relationships in pop culture.
Yeah.
I love this question.
So this gets back. I'm just going to hold these up again right here. Where did the other one go? There it is. I'm just going to hold these up. So that one and that one. And honestly, I'm a little bit of a sucker for a good railroad once in a while.
Do they or don't they?
Do they or don't they? Because we all are, because we were raised with it. And
yeah.
So sometimes they're really sweet.
It feels comfortable and predictable, and we're like, ooh, are they?
Oh, right.
You
We
know?
forgot to say that. If you're sitting down to play a role-playing game with your grandma, maybe you want a romance role-playing game with your grandma. Maybe you want that railroad. That railroad is safe.
Yeah, like if you're playing Breaking the Ice, Emily's game.
I would not put Emily's game on that railroad.
Yeah, that's fair.
For sure.
That's fair.
I would not.
That's fair. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you're right. Anyway. Jinx.
So the TV show Sex Ed is really good.
Oh my God, Sex Education.
But only the first season. Second season is fine, but I don't feel like they carried it.
Okay, but still, no, because there's some really important bits.
There's some really important bits that are not. All right. Anyway, Sex Ed, the TV show is good.
Do watch sex education. I also would say, and this is odd, do watch Spartacus, because the sex and sexual violence in that is handled, I think, pretty peerlessly. It has consequences. People's hearts matter. So that's I wouldn't necessarily say it's a romantic
There's a lot of
movie,
romance in
but
it,
there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff in it.
Spartacus, the TV show, you mean?
Spartacus the TV show, yeah. Not the movie.
Um,
I would recommend, oh shoot, what's that? I would recommend like Water for Chocolate
okay.
as a movie.
I haven't seen that one in a lot
Oh
of
my God,
years.
so like very sexy and very much about like how sexy a scene can be with one player, like with one character, like the sensuality of it. I really would recommend that. What's the one?
While you're thinking, I'm enjoying Everything's Gonna Be Okay.
Yep.
For its take on sex, it's really interesting.
I'm gonna try and find it.
We learned when I was first working on Firebrands, we learned that I think Danger is sexier than Meg does, and like when two characters have a sword, I'm like, ooh, and Meg is like,
dude, I have a sword.
Right, Meg is like, no, that's violence. That is not sex. That is violence. And so we learned that about ourselves.
So that brings me to like part of Camilla's question involves like what kind of romantic plots, and there are so many tropes about like a mentor and a pupil or rivals that fall in love and things like that. It's very tricky. I'm working on a game right now that's called the Flirt Squad LARP with Ken Davidson, which has a lot of different like prompts for flirting. It's a game show. It's kind of fun. You're game show contestants auditioning for a spot on the Flirt Squad, which helps people be more comfortable with low stakes social flirtation. It's really fun and silly. But that is sort of like the romantic plots that deals with different tropes and things. I can't find the name of the movie. Because it's not in English. It's a subtitle. We watched it.
What was it about?
I think it might be in Swedish. It's a small town.
Is it Antonia's Line?
Yes, you are the best. Antonia's Line, which is filled with different situations. Some of them very, very violent, very sexually violent. It's not necessary. So I'm not saying, oh, this is a lovely, sweet, romantic movie, but in terms of how it handles sexuality, it's really good. I think, and I haven't watched it in probably 20 years, so it may not stand up. But this is actually a piece that that I do from sex ed. How, like, what are the different portrayals of media, and music comes up a lot,
yeah.
And songs that like are great songs, but then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh my God,
yeah.
you know.
Let some.
But yeah. I
hope that answers.
I think that answers. There's a lot. I don't know if we have a ludography for it.
Then let's go with another question. I will pick another from my list. So if you could talk with yourself like from 10 or 20 years ago as a designer, let's say, that person who was on Forge discussing fervently or making their earlier designs, what would you say to yourself?
20 years ago, what would we say to ourselves? What would you say to yourself as a designer 20 years ago?
I mean, well, so I said this a few minutes ago. It's your vision that makes your game good, not its adherence to tropes. And you know, as a designer, I've been designing for over 20 years. My first published game, Kill Puppies for Satan, was 19 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And it was, no, my first published game was the Cheap and Cheesy Fantasy game, and that was in 2000.
Yep.
I remember that.
It was right before Kill Puppies for Satan.
And I've always been driven by malcontentment.
Mhm.
And like, I've always known that I was getting better as a designer, and that it's a skill you learn and you stick with it.
No practice.
Like, yeah, and that you know, I knew that the designs I was making as a early designer, as a young designer, were not the best designs in me. One of the best things I did once was we went to the Norman Rockwell Painting Museum, Art Museum, which is near here, and that dude, like, his best paintings, and a lot of them are really sort of kitschy and stereotypical, but some of them are really great paintings, and his best paintings were made when he was in his 80s. And so, you know, that was very reassuring to me 10 years ago when, and so I would go back to my
Go back 20 years.
25-year-old self, 28-year-old self, however old I am, and say, keep learning, keep doing.
I think
You're a long way from done.
Yeah.
You're just starting.
Yeah. I think if I could go back
You're in
20
it
years,
for the long haul.
Yeah. Going back to my 20-year-old self, not just 20 years ago.
Oh, I went back 20
That's
years.
fine.
I don't know about you.
But if I went back to my 20-year-old self as a game designer, so to my 20-year-old self was designing, was trying to figure out designing the ElfQuest role-playing game on a bus trip, on an 11-hour bus trip, because ElfQuest is the best comic, and I will fight you on that. Maybe not. I mean, yes, it is. But to my 20-year-old self looking at that, I would say, it's a lot of the things we'd say, you know, that I could put my vision for what it could be different than what I saw on the shelves. That it didn't have to look like what games looked like in 1991, in terms of, you know, big glossy, that I could do different things, that was okay, that was permitted, that I could do that. That's the thing I would go back and tell my 20-year-old self, and that's the thing I would say now. It's like, just do it. I would also let my 20-year-old self know that PDFs and print on demand and the internet would arrive, and the tools of creation would be in my hands, and it would be okay. So it would be fine to just write in my notebook for 3 years until things change. Yeah. That's what I would do.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we're going to go with another one from Aleksandra Sontowska. What happened between first and second edition of Apocalypse World? Meg wasn't mentioned as a co-author.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting.
Yeah.
For a while, we thought it was more important to maintain separate identities as creators. Well, and I don't really remember why that seemed so important, but I remember talking about it, and I remember deciding that
there would be games that came out with just under my name and games that came out just under his name, even though there's a lot of commonality.
Yeah, even though we'd been collaborating. And then
I have a history point for that.
Yeah, what's up?
And then we went to Italy, and I think that is part of the story. There is such an incredible history of the woman in the couple who does the work being not credited.
Yeah.
Like an incredible history in academics and art and music and literature. A profound history in that. So so that was in ways part of the point of like having my own games out under my own name, to a point.
Yeah.
You know, that was a part of it. But
it doesn't really explain why we decided
It
that my
does-
games,
well, what
that
it is-
Apocalypse World would go out under only my name.
it's the social. It was the. I think for that part of it was, there was a couple things. Part of it was a big thing. I think was swimming in that history. You know, swimming in that history of it. You know, it doesn't matter that I was part of it from the very get-go and intimately involved in every detail of design. It wound up under your name anyway. It's weird, and it may be an American weirdness, but it's freaking weird. And then we went to Italy, and met people who were not as steeped in that, because I feel like that's a little bit more American and English than it is in other parts of the world. At least that's what we saw in Italy. Is like, oh my God, we're seeing a whole table full of games that have both names on the covers, and we remarked on it at the time, going, what the hell? We could have done that. Why didn't we do that?
Why didn't we do that? Yeah.
Right. So when we had an opportunity to, we did.
Yep.
The Sandra asks about Lost, the TV series, which I loved the first season, maybe the first couple seasons. We watched all of it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, it was an influence on Apocalypse World. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't remember it in detail, but we watched it before we worked on Apocalypse World.
Yeah.
You know, the subject matter is clearly influential on Apocalypse World,
Yep.
and you know those.
I think particularly that not all apocalypses are desert wastelands.
Yeah.
You know, that you can have an overgrown jungle as an apocalypse, and that an apocalypse is a thing that happens to a group of people or a society or a culture. It's not always it doesn't always look the same. All right. Alexander, I think we may have talked about dogs enough. So there's that.
That was a little while. We're just reading from the chat now.
Sandra's question about burned over. You know, we're not going to put sex moves in burned over. You want to talk about that a little bit? Answer that question.
Nope, not intimacy moves either.
Nope.
It's a different.
It's a different game.
Different kind of game.
Okay, I think that answers that. So I have another one. Are there design aspects you don't agree on between you and like the things that you often don't agree on or that have heated discussions when you make games together?
Okay, so when you have an idea for a game, right? The only expression of that idea is the finished game.
And not always the finished text. It's the experience, and that's hard.
That's hard too. Yeah, no, it's like, and so if I have a vision for a game, I have no way to communicate it partially.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, game design is basically the only thing we fight about. We don't fight about money or our kids mostly. You know, we fight about game design.
Because it's that communication piece, right? If we need to communicate about our finances or our kids or something with the house or the car or whatever, it's very concrete. And game design is like, I'm trying to communicate to you this idea.
Would you please understand the flavor that I have behind my eyes? It's right here.
And we have a long history of there's a type of speech we do with each other when we are designing heavily that is like gets like increasingly clear and like, this is the piece of information I need.
Right.
You know, I need, this is the question. No, that's not, you're not answering my question. This is the question. And it to me, sometimes it's fighting and sometimes it feels like striving. You know, we're trying to get to this thing, like we're sitting next to each other, we're not oppositional, and we're like, this thing. So yeah,
because for almost all of our games, one of us has the vision and then we're working together on it.
Mm-hmm.
It rarely becomes, maybe never, but it rarely becomes a fight where we disagree about the direction of the game, because that's not how we do
Yeah.
mostly. But
Yeah.
if it does become that, usually what happens is the game gets dropped because
It's
like
not
I'm not going to go ahead with a game design that I have to fight with Meg about what direction I should go. Like, why would I do that?
The thing that's amazing to see is that we have modeled this technique of communication communicating clearly about a game design quandary that is a real challenge in terms of our communication. The thing that's amazing to me to see is that we have done that so much, modeled it so much, where our kids can see that now we can use that with Elliot in particular around his game design, where we're not fighting. You know, he's like, I need this bit of information. Okay, got it. That is not what I need. I'm doing something different here. And to an outside viewer, it could look like a fight, but because the family has a family culture framework of on game design needing to get to specificity while respecting one person's particular vision, it is fascinating. It's just really cool.
Neat.
Thank you for that. So I have another question from my list. Did you do anything that you consider now at this point a sloppy design in your past? Something that you look at and you're like, oh God, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, of course.
In A Wicked Age. In A Wicked Age has this big hole right in the middle of it that I'm like, you know, I can see where I was like, well, I don't know how to solve that problem, so oh well. And
yeah, you got to do that. You have to make 1,000 mistakes, like whatever, you know. Not all of them are games that have come to be published.
Right. A lot of my biggest design mistakes I noticed before I published. But yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole process is a process of compromise. There's always fudges, always places where you go, I wish I'd spent another 8 years working on that problem before publishing.
And I have designs that are still like these little, you know, those little like manipulation puzzles that for some reason I think of always being at my grandparents' house, like where you're supposed to get the ring off of the little hooks or whatever. I have game design like that where I'm like, I keep going back and fiddling with it because I want to crack it open and make it work. Oh well, haven't yet.
Yeah.
I'll keep poking at them.
Thank you for that. Maciek Szunkowski is asking, do you watch tabletop RPG streams? What do you think about it?
No, we don't watch them. I mean, like our kids watch them some. I don't have time, first off. Second off, that's not what I'm for. That's not what I'm playing for. Like, I understand that some of them make good television, but for that, I'll watch a television show that has, you know, that I'll watch something else. I want people to do whatever they want to do and play however they want to play, but I have some concerns from a intimacy and sex ed background about the performative nature of playing on video streams before a live audience of who knows how many that you do not have any sort of say like consent and trust and buy-in. You know, if I'm playing a game with 12 people in the living room, which is fine, that's my group. And it's not like a place of you know, we've played audience participation murderous ghost with 400 people in the room. It's not impossible, but it's not my joy. I've watched a couple occasionally where people are like, hey, we're playing your game, or like Under Hollow Hills when that was happening.
Yeah.
There's some that we check into, but also, you know, that's for you. Go do that.
Thank you very much. So, what's the favorite part of design process?
Oh,
and the least favorite you already told us, I think. So, what's the favorite one?
I love the moment when Google Doc goes into InDesign. I love that moment where we've been, designing, or like all the notebooks go into InDesign, because it's this moment when suddenly you're making the real shape of a thing, and finding out whether it actually has a full shape. So I really do love that moment.
I was working on the Wizard's Grimoire, and so this was part of a game jam. I had 3 days to finish this game or whatever, start to finish. And so I'm sitting there typing as hard as I can, and I'm aware as I start that I'm setting up for a joke, right? I'm dimly aware that this is funny, and it's not. I don't know what the punchline is yet, and then at this moment, as I'm sitting there typing frantically, I write the punchline, and I burst out laughing. I'm sitting there by
really
myself
funny.
in the dining room working on my laptop, and I burst out laughing because now I've come to the punchline and I've told the joke. I love that moment, and that's happened with
A couple of games.
like every game I work on. At some point, I'm like, oh, yeah,
that's funny.
oh, now I
Yeah.
know where I am.
Yeah.
And that moment is just,
That's really
I mean,
fun.
it's worth it. That moment is what makes it.
Anytime that there's a place where we're aware that there's a lot of different cylinders that need to fire in the right order to make it run, to make it go smoothly, and we work through all the little bits and it does, that's awesome. You're like, oh my God, this mechanic did exactly what I want it to do. If we're testing a mechanic or a move or something like that, that's really cool. Very encouraging. Yeah.
So, speaking of mechanics and moves, is there any part of the Apocalypse world, or maybe I would just ask you to name it, like the subsystem or mechanic there that you're most proud of? That is like the small bit that is the best. Because for
In
me, this is
Apocalypse
the
World?
game that does so many things right that it's hard to pick one. I wonder
Yeah.
what's your take on that.
Thank you. That's really
very kind.
It's really sweet to hear. I am a sucker for read a person.
Yeah, that's very good.
I love that. I really like how harming gangs work. And that's a weird thing to really like, but I really like how harming gangs works.
Yeah. I mean, I love maps, so just anytime a map is involved, whether it's of a space or relationship maps, I really like those because they're so dynamic. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know I'm not remembering something about Apocalypse World. The game has a lot of stuff in it.
There's a lot
game has a
going on.
lot of parts.
I like the advancement mechanic, like how like I like the whole thing of
Highlighting
history and highlighting stats and how advancement works. That's pretty good. I like that. Okay.
Nice.
All right. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I
That's a
think
sweet
we've
question.
run out of the questions,
Yeah.
and
Fantastic.
and we are basically on
Sorry,
time.
can I have one more question?
Of course, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I was waiting, it's from Meguey. Because if did I hear you right that you run AD&D and you like that game? What's good about it? What's there to like about AD&D in 2020?
Oh,
There's some
great
design gold in it.
Okay, so for my players who are all there is 3 like about to be 20-year-olds, the design gold in that game is in the ability to roll for the personality of your cart, or like what things smell like. There's a lot of hiddenness in the player's handbook and the DM's guide for AD&D that have like all of these sensual elements, if we think about the five senses, that are just fantastic for storing for storytelling. That's just really cool stuff. I'm running Keep of the Borderlands. Having a module that's a map, I mean, I do like a map, is really cool. So it gives so much support in ways for the GM of like, okay, this is where you're at. And if you feel confident, like as I do with your GMing, you can just close your ears, Elliot. Oh, good. He's gone away again. You can just play all kinds of hash with that. I'm like, you know, it would be more interesting. It'd be more interesting if this was about freeing the prisoners instead of hacking your way through successive monsters. So I'm just gonna, all of my fiction in running Keep of the Borderlands and going through that amazing monstrosity of maps and layers and what you can fight. All of that is there, and we're doing that room by room. But all my fiction that I'm bringing to that is about the suppression of the kobolds by the orcs and how terrible that is, and that they're there to rescue the kobolds. You know, it's all this neat other stuff that you can layer onto it, because why wouldn't you? And it's fun. But there's if you can approach it from a level of recognizing it as a tangled mess of like, where in the book am I going to find that thing? It's kind of hilarious. And then if you use a module, like there's a lot of fun in it to see, okay, what can I put on this framework? If I look at this as a framework instead of this is how it has to be. That's really fun to view as a scaffold for your own imagination. And yeah, that it's being a blast. I would play it right now. It's hilarious. Yeah, I think that
Nice.
seem like an answer. Okay, good. Yeah. Do you have anything to follow up, or does that satisfy?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? If not, I thank you very much for your time. It was incredible. It's like very important for me personally that you are here. We cobbled this convention together like in 2 weeks, and the fact that I'm having Vincent and Meg Baker on it, Jason Morningstar, some other people, it's like dream come true for me, really. So like,
it's our pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely our pleasure.
If you could hang out on Discord for a bit, it would be cool. If not, that's also okay. We have English chat channel there, and there is going to be Q&A, game design Q&A in the evening, in 2 hours, I think, with Jason, Gran Howitt, and Paul Chegas. So if you want to join on
cool.
that will be also more than welcome. We can add you to the team.
I don't think I can make it, but we'll see if we can make it.
Of course, it's like I'm not dragging you in, but if you want to, it will be very cool.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
We really
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your questions and for your